The question, I just read your statement. I can read your statement. Who is Jesus Romero Hernandez?
I don't have the details on every single person in a state of 20 million people.
I understand, but this guy's a citizen of Mexico, deported 7 times, came to your state, assaulted one of your residents with a machete, choked a police officer, then when he was in custody, assaulted a corrections officer.
I have responsibility.
I will tell you, since you're not going to answer,
courts,
we cannot and will not hold Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah.
We can't keep the machete guy who had choked a police officer and assaulted a corrections officer. We can't keep him. In fact, we have the back and forth from Tompkins County and ICE on January 28th of this year, 8:56 p.m. Tompkins County tells ICE, we're not going to hold this guy. 7 minutes later, ICE responds back, we will be there to take custody this evening. 24 minutes later, Thompson County reiterates, we're not going to have him. We're not going to turn him over. 10:45. ICE arrives at the jail. 1 hour and 18 minutes later, and guess what? Mr. Hernandez is not there. They couldn't wait 1 hour and 18 minutes for a guy who assaulted one of your residents with a machete, choked a police officer, and then when in custody, assaulted corrections officers. That is sanctuary policy in a nutshell, and that is what your state supports, and so do these other governors. That is what is so wrong, why the American people hate this concept.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to Signal 76, where we fearlessly expose the truth that mainstream media refuses to tell you. Today, we're diving deep into a congressional hearing that perfectly illustrates everything that's wrong with sanctuary policies and the radical left's complete abandonment of public safety. I'm talking about Representative Jim Jordan's absolutely devastating takedown of Governor Hochul regarding a case that will make your blood boil. Before we get into this explosive content, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is growing rapidly because patriots like you are hungry for the truth, and we're delivering it every single day. Smash that like button, drop a comment letting me know your thoughts, and most importantly, watch this entire video because the revelations at the end will leave you speechless. The establishment doesn't want you to see content like this, which is exactly why we need to spread it far and wide.
Recognizes Mr. Jordan from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Hochul, third paragraph, second sentence in your written testimony, you said New York State cooperates with U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement in criminal cases. Governor, who's Jesus Romero Hernandez?
Thank you. I want to reaffirm that we do cooperate in cases where...
That wasn't the question. I just read your statement. I can read your statement. Who is Jesus Romero Hernandez?
I don't have the details on every single person in a state of 20 million people.
I understand, but this guy's a citizen of Mexico, deported 7 times, came to your state, assaulted one of your residents with a machete, choked a police officer, then when he was in custody, assaulted a corrections officer. ICE finds out this guy is in your state's custody, and they send you a detainer. You're familiar with a detainer, right?
Yes, I am.
Notice of action, immigration detainer to Tompkins County Jail from Syracuse Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Section 1, they check a couple boxes. The first one they check is a final order of removal against the alien has taken place. That means a court has said this guy needs to go. This machete-wielding, cop-choking, corrections officer assaulting guy needs to go. Then they also check another box and they say biometric confirmation of who this individual is, this alien's identity. So they got the right guy, and a court has said he needs to go. Any idea what Tompkins County Jail decided to do with that detainer order?
I will tell you this, the state of...
It's a specific question.
No,
what did Tompkins County do?
The descriptions you have put forth are absolutely chilling and disturbing and reprehensible to all of us. My job is to protect the people of New York.
Which is why I'm asking the question. What did Tompkins County do?
What I have responsibility for...
I will tell you, since you're not going to answer. We cannot and will not hold Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah.
We can't keep the machete guy who had choked a police officer and assaulted a corrections officer. We can't keep him. In fact, we have the back and forth from Tompkins County and ICE on January 28th of this year, 8:56 p.m. Tompkins County tells ICE, we're not going to hold this guy. 7 minutes later, ICE responds back, we will be there to take custody this evening. 24 minutes later, Thompson County reiterates, we're not going to have him. We're not going to turn him over. 10:45. ICE arrives at the jail. 1 hour and 18 minutes later, and guess what? Mr. Hernandez is not there. They couldn't wait 1 hour and 18 minutes for a guy who assaulted one of your residents with a machete, choked a police officer, and then when in custody, assaulted corrections officers. That is sanctuary policy in a nutshell, and that is what your state supports, and so do these other governors. That is what is so wrong, why the American people hate this concept.
You're conflating what the state of New York does is I control state police and prisons. We have turned over 1,300 people.
So you disagree with it?
We turn over 1,300
people. Did the sheriff make the wrong call?
Those are local policies that we would not have done in the state of New York. State of New York, that is a local decision.
So you're saying the sheriff's wrong?
I would say this, if it happened in a state prison, we have already turned over 1,300 people.
Sheriff in Tompkins County, a Democrat or Republican, Governor?
There have been times, excuse me.
The sheriff in Tompkins County, a Democrat or Republican?
Excuse me. There have been times.
I ask the questions, you give the answers.
I'm asking
is he a Democrat or Republican? You know?
I'm asking for this moment to explain that I'm sometimes waiting for ICE to come pick up people. Is he a Democrat or Republican, and do you agree with the actions he took? He's a Democrat. Do you agree with the actions he took? How about that question? They are in conflict with what the state of New York would do. Well, maybe they're scared. By the way, he is a Democrat sheriff. Maybe the county guys are a little scared because you said this. I'm quoting from, it looks like the New York Times. We all know you can trust them. This is last month, May 25th. You said we have some counties that are renegade counties and work with ICE. Maybe they're nervous of being called a renegade county by their governor. So the Democrat sheriff says, we're not going to keep the machete-wielding, cop-choking, corrections officer assaulting guy. We're not going to keep him here for you to get here. We can't even wait an hour and 18 minutes. Oh, you know what else was interesting in this case? You know what else was interesting? There was actually an arrest warrant from United States District Court, Northern District of New York, signed by Judge Wiley Danks, magistrate from Syracuse. There was an arrest warrant, and they still couldn't keep him. The state of New York cooperates. We cooperate in removal of individuals who've served time. We respond to detention. You're confusing, and maybe there's a lesson in civics here that's necessary. On the record right here, I got 12 seconds. Will you say on the record, was Tompkins County wrong in the actions they took on January 25th, 2025, when they wouldn't hold the guy for 1 hour and 18 minutes? Those are not the policies that we would have in the state of New York. Those are not the policies we would have in a. Were they wrong? Should they have turned that guy over to ICE? It's a simple question, Governor. That was a horrible situation. The person should not have been out there. It's a horrible situation, but it's a yes or no question. It is a response that this is a locality. Do you agree or disagree? In the state of New York, the person should have been held. Yes or no? The person should have been held, and in the state of New York, we would have turned him over. That is in conflict with what we would do as a state with respect to prison. And I want to know why ICE won't come and pick up the individuals who have served time in our state. I have cases where they have not even shown up. A court order and a detainer for a guy who did the things Mr. Hernandez did, and Tompkins County can't hold him an hour and 18 minutes, and you won't say that's wrong? I have said we cooperate when there's a criminal case where someone has committed a crime. We turn them over. This is sanctuary policy in a nutshell. You won't even condemn something that anyone with common sense knows is ridiculous. You're mischaracterizing the laws of the state
I had the facts here. Oh, can I do one other thing, Mr. Chairman? Now he's been rearrested, and guess what? This guy who's now been rearrested, there is imminent danger that this inmate will do injury to himself and to others and presents a threat to safety, security, and good order of the facility, so he's not permitted to leave his cell. So this guy's not even allowed out of his cell, but they let him out on the street a few months ago. That's how ridiculous this is. When he does leave his cell, it'll go back to his country under our orders of deportation.
Chair recognizes Mr. Mfume, and I'll give you an extra minute.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I've got 2 unanimous consent requests that I hope would not count against my time.
What I'm about to share with you represents everything that's fundamentally broken in our immigration system and showcases the deadly consequences of progressive policies that prioritize criminal aliens over American citizens. This isn't just politics, folks. This is about life and death, and it's about whether we still have a functioning system of law and order in this great nation. The case centers around Jesus Romero Hernandez, a Mexican national who has been deported 7 times. Let that sink in for a moment. 7 times this individual has been removed from our country, and 7 times he has illegally re-entered. But here's where it gets absolutely infuriating. This isn't just some person looking for work or a better life. This is a violent criminal who assaulted an American citizen with a machete, choked a police officer, and then assaulted a corrections officer while in custody. Think about that for a second. An American citizen was attacked with a machete by someone who shouldn't have been in this country in the first place. A brave police officer, someone who puts their life on the line every day to protect our communities, was choked by this criminal. And when this dangerous individual was finally in custody, he assaulted the corrections officer trying to keep our communities safe. This is the reality of failed immigration policies, and it's happening in communities across America. Now, here's where the story gets even more outrageous. ICE, doing their job as federal law enforcement, sent what's called a detainer to Tompkins County Jail. This detainer wasn't some bureaucratic suggestion. It was backed by a final order of removal from a federal court, meaning a judge had already determined this individual needed to be deported. They also had biometric confirmation, so there was absolutely no question about this person's identity or criminal history. The detainer system is supposed to be straightforward. Local authorities hold the individual for a reasonable period, typically 48 hours, to allow federal immigration enforcement to take custody. It's a system that has worked for decades and is essential for public safety. But in this case, something absolutely shocking happened that perfectly illustrates the insanity of sanctuary policies. On January 28th, at 8:56 p.m., Tompkins County Jail contacted ICE and told them they would not hold Hernandez. Just 7 minutes later, ICE responded that they would be there that very evening to take custody. Think about this timeline, patriots. Federal agents were ready to remove this dangerous criminal from our streets within minutes of being notified. But 24 minutes after the initial contact, Tompkins County doubled down and reiterated they would not turn him over. Here's the part that should make every American furious. ICE agents arrived at the jail at 10:45 p.m., just 1 hour and 18 minutes after being told the individual wouldn't be held. 1 hour and 18 minutes. That's less time than it takes to watch a movie. But when those federal agents arrived to remove this machete-wielding, cop-choking criminal, he was already gone, released back onto the streets to potentially harm more innocent Americans. This isn't incompetence, folks. This is deliberate. This is sanctuary policy in action, and it's exactly what Jim Jordan called it during this hearing. The county couldn't wait 1 hour and 18 minutes to protect American citizens from a violent criminal who had already proven multiple times that he was a danger to our communities. But wait, it gets even worse. There wasn't just an immigration detainer. There's also an arrest warrant from the United States District Court for the Northern District of New York, signed by a federal magistrate judge. So we had both immigration authorities and federal criminal authorities seeking custody of this individual, and local officials still refused to cooperate. During the hearing, Representative Jordan pressed Governor Hochul repeatedly about whether she agreed with Tompkins County's decision. Her responses were exactly what you'd expect from a politician trying to have it both ways. She claimed that New York State cooperates with federal immigration enforcement and has turned over 1,300 individuals. But when it came to condemning this specific outrageous decision, she danced around the question. This is the problem with so many of these politicians. They want to sound tough on crime when they're in front of cameras, but they refuse to actually stand up to the radical elements within their own party who are pushing these dangerous sanctuary policies. Governor Hochul eventually admitted that the individual should have been held and that New York State would have turned him over, but she couldn't bring herself to clearly state that Tompkins County was wrong. The political dynamics here are crucial to understand. The Tompkins County Sheriff is a Democrat, and Jordan pointed out that Governor Hochul has previously criticized counties that cooperate with ICE as renegade counties. Is it any wonder that local Democratic officials are afraid to do the right thing when their own governor is publicly attacking those who work with federal immigration enforcement? This creates a culture where protecting criminal aliens becomes more important than protecting American citizens. When you have governors calling law-abiding counties renegade for cooperating with federal law enforcement, you're sending a clear message about what your priorities are. And those priorities clearly don't include public safety. The consequences of these policies are real and devastating. We're not talking about theoretical harm or political talking points. We're talking about actual Americans being attacked with machetes by people who shouldn't be in our country. We're talking about police officers being assaulted by individuals who have been deported multiple times. We're talking about a complete breakdown of the rule of law. But here's the most infuriating part of this entire story. Jesus Romero Hernandez has since been rearrested. And guess what the authorities have determined? He presents such an imminent danger that he's not even allowed to leave his cell. The man is so dangerous that he can't be trusted to walk around a maximum security facility. But just months ago, sanctuary policies allowed him to walk free on American streets. This perfectly encapsulates the insanity of the current system. We have local officials who are so committed to their ideological opposition to immigration enforcement that they'll release someone who is later determined to be too dangerous to even leave a jail cell. The priorities are completely backwards, and American citizens are paying the price. This case also highlights the broader problem with sanctuary policies across the country. These aren't isolated incidents. They're the predictable result of policies that prioritize protecting criminal aliens over protecting American citizens. Every time a dangerous individual is released instead of being turned over to ICE, communities are put at risk. The defenders of sanctuary policies like to claim they're about protecting immigrant communities and building trust with law enforcement. But cases like this expose the reality. We're not talking about protecting law-abiding immigrants. We're talking about protecting violent criminals who have repeatedly violated our laws and pose a clear danger to American citizens. Real immigration reform and real public safety require acknowledging that there are people who simply cannot be allowed to remain in our communities. When someone has been deported 7 times and continues to commit violent crimes, the solution isn't to release them back onto the streets. The solution is to ensure they're removed from the country and prevented from returning. This is also why we need to support representatives like Jim Jordan who are willing to ask the tough questions and demand accountability. During this hearing, Jordan didn't let Governor Hochul off the hook with political talking points and deflections. He presented the facts, demanded answers, and exposed the deadly consequences of sanctuary policies. The mainstream media won't cover stories like this the way they should because it doesn't fit their narrative. They don't want to acknowledge that sanctuary policies have real victims and real consequences. They'd rather focus on emotional appeals and abstract principles than confront the reality of what happens when violent criminals are protected instead of American citizens. But we can't let them control the narrative. We have to keep talking about cases like Jesus Romero Hernandez because every American deserves to know what's happening in their communities. Every voter deserves to understand the real-world impact of the policies their representatives support. This isn't about being anti-immigrant. This is about being pro-American and pro-public safety. There are millions of people around the world who want to come to America legally and contribute to our communities. Those people deserve a fair and efficient immigration system. But protecting violent criminals who repeatedly violate our laws isn't compassion. It's a betrayal of every law-abiding person, immigrant and citizen alike. The solution starts with electing representatives who will prioritize American citizens and public safety over political correctness and ideological posturing. It means supporting law enforcement and immigration enforcement agencies when they're trying to do their jobs. And it means demanding accountability from local officials who think they can ignore federal law without consequences. We also need to understand that this isn't just about immigration policy. This is about the rule of law itself. When local governments can simply ignore federal court orders and federal law enforcement agencies, we don't have a functioning system of government. We have chaos, and that chaos always comes at the expense of law-abiding citizens. The good news is that the American people are waking up to these issues. Cases like this one are opening eyes and changing minds because they cut through the political rhetoric and show the real consequences of failed policies. People understand that when a violent criminal is released instead of being deported, their own communities become less safe. That's why content like this is so important. And that's why channels like Signal 76 are growing so rapidly. People are hungry for the truth, and they're tired of being told that their concerns about public safety are somehow bigoted or unreasonable. Common sense isn't controversial, even though the political establishment tries to make it seem that way. As we wrap up this deep dive into congressional testimony that every American should see, I want you to remember that this isn't just about one case or one county. This is about the fundamental question of whether we're going to be a nation of laws or a nation where political ideology trumps public safety. The choice is clear, and the stakes couldn't be higher. We can continue down the path of sanctuary policies that protect criminals at the expense of citizens, or we can return to common sense policies that prioritize American safety and the rule of law. The decision is up to us, and it starts with staying informed, staying engaged, and making sure our voices are heard. Make sure you're subscribed to Signal 76 for more content like this that cuts through the mainstream media narratives and delivers the truth that matters. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and share this video with everyone you know who needs to understand what's really happening in our communities. The establishment doesn't want this information to spread, which is exactly why we need to make sure it reaches as many patriots as possible. Keep fighting for America, keep demanding the truth, and never let them convince you that protecting American citizens is somehow controversial. Until next time, this is Signal 76, and we'll keep bringing you the stories that matter most.